Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds on Premier League. We are back to analyze Boxing Day, 17th match day, of course, with Tom Rennie. How are you, Tom? Enjoying the holidays?
I'm delighted to be back. The World Cup was lovely. What a lovely break for all of us. But let's get to the real stuff now. The Premier League is back. The West Ham battle to stay in the Premier League starts here.
Probably we will see better football games, to be honest, than in the World Cup. But, of course, we had fun in the World Cup. Guys, remember to leave your comments in the video. And if you enjoy it, press the like, subscribe. And now let's analyze this Boxing Day. I think we have to do a little bit of memory, Tom, to see where we were 1 month ago and where the teams were. And actually, I think it's going to be a bit tricky to place bets in these games because we don't know how the teams are going to perform in the second part of the season, but we are going to try to do our best. Early kickoff is Brentford. Tottenham football is back in London. Brentford, we left them beating Man City, remember, 1-2. What a surprise with Tony scoring a brace, the last one in the last minutes of the game. They are in the middle of the standings, and we left the Spurs with a crazy victory, very entertaining game, 4-3 against Leeds, also coming back from behind with Bentancur scoring. And Tom, despite Tottenham being that favorite for this game, I think if this game was 1 month ago, we would have said that Spurs, they are struggling, and Brentford, they are especially strong when they are playing at home. Only one defeat this season at home.
Well, I think you said a lot of things I agree with there. This is going to be such a tough week to bet on because the form doesn't matter. The form is completely irrelevant at this moment in time. The good feeling of those victories for both these clubs was so long ago. Since then, Ivan Toney has been done for gambling offences, allegedly, and Harry Kane hit a penalty so far over the crossbar, no one's seen the ball since. So a lot has changed since these two teams were in Premier League action. So I'll try and find a pathway through for us. And for Brentford at home this season, they have been a very decent proposition. So that's something worth noting here. Just one defeat in their last 5 home games. Famous victories against Leeds and Manchester United. They held Chelsea in one of their recent home games as well. So it's very difficult to go to Brentford and win. In terms of players that are going to be out for them, there's no one wildly significant going to be missing. Toney should be there and Bumo should be there. There's always defensive issues. I think maybe only Aya and Janssen of their 6 or 7 oft-injured centre-halves aren't going to be there. So it's going to be a strong Brentford team. First game in a month. Boxing Day always is a brilliant atmosphere. I don't think we've got train strikes, so people should be able to get there, but you never know with England these days. So I think Brentford are going to be bang up for it. They haven't done a great deal for a month. 2 friendlies, I think, before this one has come around, and a near fully fit squad, certainly in attack. For Tottenham, it's slightly more interesting because more of their players went to the World Cup. One of them won it. One of them lost it in terms of Romero and Lloris, who would be starting in this game. I think. So what sort of frame of mind is Hugo Lloris going to be in? Is Romero even going to be in the country following winning the World Cup? I mean, surely he's earned the right to go back to Buenos Aires and celebrate for a few days. But that does leave Tottenham with defensive issues. It leaves them with holes to fill in the centre of defence. Some talk about Ben Davies being injured as well. Some talk about Rodrigo Bentancur, who I think is their most important player, being injured, having picked up something playing for Uruguay. And we don't know about Richarlison as well, who apparently was carrying an injury through Brazil's run and now is likely to be missing for quite some time, we are told. Potentially February will be the next time we see Richarlison. So there's all sorts of issues there for both of these teams. Worth noting in terms of how good Spurs have been away from home this season. Very, very good. 11 points from their away games. 4th or 5th best record away from home, 3 victories and 2 defeats in their last 5. So tough one here. I certainly wouldn't discount the draw market, which is around 4-1, but Tottenham are going to be around 2-1 for this. And Tottenham are, player for player, better than Brentford, even with their defensive issues. And I just feel like the second half of the season for Spurs is going to be better than the first. I think there was a lot of World Cup distraction. There was a lot of eyes elsewhere elsewhere for Tottenham. And maybe a sense of what is this season? Is it Antonio Conte's last season? You know, a lot of pressure on Tottenham, which may now be gone for them because of the fact we've not spoken about it for 6 weeks when we're speaking about it every day. So I'd pip for Spurs here because 2-1 is quite nice. Double chance on the draw at 4-1 as well will bring you a decent marking. I'd certainly be looking at both teams scoring this game. And as ever with Tottenham, I think they're still the best for scoring from corners in the league. So look for over 6 corners. Tottenham win, Tottenham score from a corner, and both teams score. But variations of Spurs win.
All right. Well, the Spurs made a good first part of the season, in my opinion. Perhaps not playing that great, but they are in Champions League spots. They are in the last 16 round of the Champions League. So they are where they should be. Now, let's see how they perform. Next game, also in London, Crystal Palace, Fulham. Also two teams that they've done great in the first part of the season, especially Fulham. Of course, 9th in the standings. They lost to Man United 1-2 and to City also in the last 2 games. But in both, they really put a fight in these games against Manchester teams, whereas Crystal Palace also defeated in the last game against Forest. But when they are playing at home, Tom, before, of course, this break, they won the last 3 at Selhurst Park.
Oh, this is terrible, this one. Terrible game to bet on because they are incredibly even, these two teams. Mm-hmm. In terms of Crystal Palace, I saw them beat West Ham recently, and they're a very good football team. They keep the ball much better than I think we give them credit for. They're a good team in possession. They're a solid team in defence. The issue is, because they are so solid, they don't get enough players forward to support Wilfried Zaha, who is the striker now. It's not Eduardo or whoever else they've played up there in recent times, Mateta. Wilfried Zaha is the striker, which does give the opportunity to bring in Eze and Elise and some of the other attacking players to support him in wide areas. And Wilfried Zaha, a central striker, is very, very good. He's scoring goals. I think we're currently at his highest level at this point of goals in the Premier League season. Last year was his highest ever goal-scoring Premier League season. It's likely to be his last at Crystal Palace. And so it's given them an extra edge. But apart from him, no one else scores. That's a similar story for Fulham. They've scored more goals in totality than Palace by 9. But without Alexander Mitrovic, they don't really have a great deal of goal threat. And we don't know about the fitness of Mitrovic, who was struggling before the World Cup. He was struggling during the World Cup. And we're hearing that he may well be struggling going into this game as well. It's going to be very tough for Alexander Mitrovic to get through this run of games. I think it's 4 games in 2 weeks. Without picking up a knock. So there might be some play for Carlos Vinicius, who scored in a friendly against West Ham a couple of days ago at Craven Cottage. Again, I think the draw market is really interesting here at 3.5 to 4-1. I'd certainly be looking at that. I'd be looking at low scoring here, mainly because Crystal Palace have a good defence. I don't know about the condition of Mitrovic, as I mentioned, and Palace don't score a great deal of goals. But I think the more likely winner is Crystal Palace. I think Fulham will slide down the table as the season goes on. They have overperformed what I would expect. I expect them to start underperforming sooner rather than later. And Palace are going to start winning home games, losing away games, and muddling their way through to their usual 13th place position. So Palace to win, under 2.5 goals in the game. Look out for Wilfried Zaha to be on the score sheet.
Nice odds for under 2.5 goals, 1.96. Next game, probably also a low-scoring game. And this one, I can feel the fear. Everton, Wolverhampton, because Wolves, they are bottom of the table now with Lopetegui. Time for training in the south of Spain. They are coming from an awful run of fixtures, only 1 point in the last 5 games, 4 points away from salvation. So Tom really in trouble, but also Everton 1 point above the relegation spots, 1 victory in the last 7 with 5 defeats. So also Lampard under pressure.
Well, so far these games have been horrible to predict. This one, look, I think that the one thing I would be very confident of is low scoring. Low scoring in this game. 2 of the worst teams in the Premier League so far this season. Everton have scored 11. Wolves have scored 8. And Wolves have just hired a very defensive-minded manager in Julian Lopetegui, who said in his unveiling press conference, we need to buy defenders. We need to shore up the back line first. And you think, yeah, okay, sure, that's not inconsequential. They've conceded 24 goals. But the main issue is they can't score, and they don't score, and they can't find a way to score. And that is the issue. That's why Wolves are struggling. I didn't think they would struggle to this degree. But without being able to score goals, you aren't going to stay in the Premier League. You're not going to have a good season. So they need to find a way to score. And that's the transfer market, which is not open as yet for Wolves. For Everton, it's about getting Dominic Calvert-Lewin fit, as it's been for such a long time. They had some decent moments, Everton, in that first half of the season, but the deficiencies are clear. Frank Lampard is a caution-first manager, that we have learned, but he's had to be. He's lost Richarlison. His attacking talents have not been there. People like Andros Townsend haven't played this season. And Calvert-Lewin is a top-level striker, but he's barely been fit for a year. We are told he doesn't have a thigh injury going into Boxing Day. We are told at the moment he should be playing, and I think that could be a difference maker here. Expect low scoring. 0-0 is not off the cards here. But I'd be looking at 1 goal wins it. Everton have shanked their way to a few 1-0 wins this season against poor teams at home, and I wouldn't discount that here. I'd be looking at a real low amount of shots, maybe under 10 shots per team. I'd be looking at Wolverhampton Wanderers to have less than 5 shots in this game. I can't see Wolves scoring. So 2 scenarios. 0-0 draw, Everton score, and leave it at a 1-0 victory, but look for the under for goals, the under for shots, the under for corners, the under for entertainment value, and maybe just take the money on an under and run.
Boring game, under 2 goals, 2.41. My eyes, Tom, will be on the next game, Leicester City, Newcastle. This one is a good one because the Foxes were good before the break, as you predicted, and I put my money on that. They beat West Ham, making 4 victories in the last 5, and the only defeat came against Man City in a very close game, whereas Newcastle, they are also in great shape. 5 consecutive victories, 7 out of 8, 3rd in the standings, beating Chelsea. This one is a very good one.
I mean, if there's one thing you can count on me for, it's betting on the right West Ham to lose result. And that Leicester 4-1 to win at West Ham was a cash giveaway. So I hope everyone put their money on that, as I did and you did. But Leicester shouldn't be discounted from that conversation. It wasn't just because West Ham were bad. It's Leicester have got good. And they've got good because James Maddison has been consistently good all season. He deserved his place in the England squad and should have got at least 10 seconds of play during the World Cup. But he didn't, so he should be fully fit and raring to go for Leicester in this game. They're getting goals elsewhere. The defence looks more solid. Valface looks like he is developing into a decent centre-half in the Premier League. He looked very raw in the, I think it was Tottenham game when he made his debut. And even Danny Ward, couldn't catch a cold the first few weeks of the season. He's making good saves and playing quite well. He's probably the Wales #1 now with Wayne Hennessy's sweet chin music on the forward in the Iran game, probably the end of his time as the Wales #1. So he'll get a confidence boost from that, being the Welsh #1 goalkeeper. Playing good football, creating chances, scoring goals with one of the best players in the league this season. You can see Leicester moving up the table in the second half of the campaign. Newcastle, they're already there. And the question now for Newcastle is whether it can be maintained. Callum Wilson only played a few minutes during the World Cup, so he's going to be fully fit. That's really important. Bruno Guimaraes has basically had a few weeks off, having not done a great deal during the World Cup. And of course, Brazil went out early. That's great news. So it's a relatively fully fit Newcastle from their strongest possible team, bar maybe Alexander Isak, who we still don't know when he is going to be back. They're talking about New Year for him. Terrible game to predict this because all outcomes are possible. That's what makes it a real difficult one. It's well worth a punt on Newcastle at 2-1. Well worth a punt on Newcastle at 2-1 because they are a team right now riding a crest of a wave. And if they're able to keep the positivity from the first half of this season, I think they can, and I think will go to Leicester City and win the game. I think both teams will score because there's so much creative energy in both teams. I think this game will bubble and pop and fizz, and I think you'll get goals at both ends. The most common scoreline in football, as I always tell you, is 2-1. That's the scoreline that I see here. So both teams score. Go with your gut for who's going to win it, but I would shade for Newcastle to win away from home with both teams scoring.
All right, both teams to score is 1.73 in case you think about putting your bet on that one. Next game in the south, Southampton, Brighton. We have Southampton also in trouble, penultimate in the standings, with Nathan Jones as manager, coming from 3 consecutive defeats, the last one against Liverpool. And we have Brighton with the Derby that they lost, surprisingly, the last game against Aston Villa. But Tom, they were in good shape before that, beating Wolves, beating Chelsea especially. Here we have good odds if we go for the away team, in my opinion, 2.15, because I guess it's a big question mark, no? This new Southampton.
Yeah, look, I think Southampton will be in the bottom 4, right? End of this season, they will go down or they will just survive at the end of this season. So if you are hoping to stay in the league, you must beat Southampton. That is a really important game for everyone this campaign, because Southampton look like a team that are going to be relegated. They've brought in Nathan Jones, Ralph Hasenhüttl's time. Felt like it came to an end at the back end of last season. They built so much around him as manager. I think it was a bit complicated to get rid of him, and they gave him another chance to see what he could do. But they gave him a pretty poor squad. I think he was very heavily involved in that, personally approving transfers and rejecting others. But it's not really a Premier League squad Southampton have got. I think they've overperformed in recent years in terms of just staying in the league. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Nathan Jones, I think. It's going to be a difficult second half of this season, plus a few games, and it's going to be a very tough match as well. For Brighton, I think still riding a bit on the crest of the Graham Potter wave. They certainly have been a bit more offensive looking in some of the most recent games under De Zerbi. You look at the Chelsea game where they were wildly offensive, the victory at Wolverhampton Wanderers where they gave no quarter against a poor team, and even the loss against Aston Villa, they were still desperately trying to get on the front foot. They've lost a bit of that control of games they used to have under Graham Potter, and they've exchanged that for trying to win them from the outset. And look, at 2-1, I don't think you could look anywhere but Brighton win here. I think that's a really, really nice, simple double your money bet. I think it'll probably go up a little bit going towards it. But look, Southampton, they do not score many goals, 13 scored all season. They've lost the last 3 in the league. A new manager has come in, but most of the players might not really know who he is. He's not a particularly inspiring appointment. No. Maybe he's worked with the squad over the month and he's going to do something I don't expect, but he is a possession manager, and Southampton aren't necessarily a possession team. I think that Brighton go there, Brighton win, and I think Brighton win there without conceding. I just cannot see Southampton scoring a goal. So go Brighton to win to 0.
Okay, Brighton, they have a world champion, Alexis McAllister, and also Aston Villa. Next game, we have 2 more games on Boxing Day, very good ones. Aston Villa, Liverpool is probably the best one on this day, with Dibu Martinez, of course, as an Aston Villa goalkeeper. And Aston Villa, they were doing the things well before the break, already with Unai Emery on the bench. Victories against Brighton, against Man United. At home, they've been strong this season. Only 1 defeat, 6 in the standings when they are playing in Villa Park. And this Liverpool is always giving us second thoughts. Tom, I don't know if we should trust Liverpool playing here in Villa Park with these low odds, probably 1.7. Perhaps this is high for Liverpool, but they've been awful on the road this season.
Yeah, I don't like the odds for Liverpool for this one. I think they should be looking at, if they were about 2.1, 2.4, I think I'd probably take them for this game. But at 1.7, 1.8, I don't know how big of favourites they are. Look, with Villa opposite to Southampton, they have brought a manager in who will inspire the players they have. You know, Steven Gerrard was dour and dismal and depressing, and the players simply did not want to play for him. They got the new manager bounce off Steven Gerrard, then realised, actually, he's not a great tactician. Why do we want to play for this guy? Unai Emery is a brilliant manager, a brilliant coach for Aston Villa. You know, this is a club below his station that he's taken. In order to try and get them into the Champions League, the European places, to build the club over the next 3 or 4 years. And I think you'll get that opportunity in a way that Steven Gerrard, he didn't get the chance to get much wrong, but he also didn't get much right. He's got a squad with goal-scoring threat in Ings and Watkins. He's getting a tune out of people like Leon Bailey, who I don't think is particularly good, but he's getting something from him. Defensive-wise, he has improved them a little bit, but I think he's got to improve the personnel as opposed to keep trying to make Tyrone Mings good. I think you try and get somebody else in. The bad news for Aston Villa, of course, is they did that in Diego Carlos. They brought him in, and I think he's still out and he's going to miss probably the rest of this season. So they brought in the replacement, but then he immediately got injured. So that's to blow for them. So I can see Villa doing a similar job here to what they've done this season in home games against Manchester City, for example, where they dug in, they got a draw, they looked impressive, and they're a team that are able to raise themselves to the big occasion, to the big opposition. The question is, what sort of Liverpool are we going to get? You're right to pick out their away form, which has been very poor this campaign. 1 victory from 6 on the road. That's why Liverpool are where they are. Not because of results at Anfield, because away from home, they've had some really poor performances. Nottingham Forest was abysmal. Arsenal, they were outplayed. Manchester United, they weren't particularly good and went on to lose that game against a good United that day, to be fair. So it's about finding a way to play away from home for Liverpool. And the all-out attack, the heavy metal football, the we'll score more goals than you, it's not working. It's not working right now for Liverpool. And they might need to, I don't think they will, but they might need to find a way to get more midfielders on the field, try and control the ball, create less chances. It may well be an opportunity for Mo Salah to play as central striker and bring other players deeper to try and control a game of football, which they've not done a great deal in recent times. And it's worth noting Mo Salah as well, legendary Premier League striker, but he's really not been great this season in front of goal. 6 goals for him. It's great for mere mortals, but it's not great for Mo Salah when you consider Erling Haaland's got 18, Harry Kane's got 12, Ivan Toney's got 10. He's behind Rodrigo at Leeds, Mitrovic, Almiron. They've all got more goals than Mo Salah this season. And we've just seen with Lionel Messi at the World Cup. It's all well and good building a team and doing tactics, but if your star player's not scoring, you don't win the trophies. That's why they're star players. That's why they have 5 Ferraris, and most defenders only have 1. Because the star player gets the most money because he does the most bankable thing in football, and that's score goals. So right now, I wouldn't put my personal money on Liverpool. I wouldn't put it on Mo Salah. Give me a couple of goals and I'll change my mind. I think Villa can get a draw here at 4-1. 4-1 is a very, very nice lay for this weekend. Draw, both teams score, and looking at Liverpool this season, it's still quite a safe bet until I see otherwise that Villa score first. Villa first goal, draw, both teams score.
All right, both teams to score is 1.69. 2 defeats at home for Aston Villa. I said 1, but no, they lost 2 games at Villa Park. And the last game in Boxing Day is Arsenal-West Ham. We left Arsenal clear, 5 points clear on top of the table with Man City because they were able to beat Wolverhampton, to beat Chelsea in the last 2 games without conceding. Both games played away. Now they are back to the home turf where they've won every single game this season and facing your West Ham. Tom, I'm not sure if there are many stats to be optimistic for this game. We left West Ham with 3 consecutive defeats before the break.
Well, starting with Arsenal, gutted for them that the season ended when it did, because they had been in fine form across the campaign. They had a couple of little blips going into that last little run of form, and they overcame issues they had. And there was a draw against Southampton where we started to think, oh, well, that's it. That's the end of the Arsenal early season run. They'll fall apart, and they battered Nottingham Forest. They went and won at Chelsea, huge victory, and then a pretty poor Wolves, but still won, as you mentioned, and that's very important to get those results, especially when you're not at your absolute best. So it's a real shame for them the season ended, and it's a real shame for them too that Gabriel Jesus, who has stopped scoring but has been so important to everything Arsenal have done, has got injured during the World Cup, a tournament where he barely played. I think it was the 3rd group game he got injured, and he's going to be out till late February, early March. And Eddie Nketiah, he played well when there was a new contract up for grabs. I don't think he is as good a replacement as maybe Arsenal would have wanted if they're in a title mix. So that's a huge blow for Arsenal to lose him. And we still don't know about Alexander Zinchenko, who has missed a fair chunk of this season with injury. So not great news for Arsenal on that score, but Granit Xhaka, Thomas Partey, the other star players, Bukayo Saka, they've all come back from the World Cup fit. Should be good for this one. And I think Arsenal, quite rightly, are massive favourites to win this game. Their home form has been great. Their overall form has been great. I don't think they need Gabriel Jesus, frankly, to beat West Ham, who, West Ham have had a brilliant 2.5 years before this season began. So you can't discount the job that David Moyes has done to this point. But this year, they probably have been the most disappointing team in the league. They have been so poor in so many areas. They don't score many goals. They don't know how to play Gianluca Scamacca, who might be injured for this game, having picked up a knock against Fulham a couple of days ago. The midfield, what's the makeup? Is it Rice and Paqueta? Is it Thomas Soucek? How does that work? Defense, Kurt Zuma is out again. Naya Faguer is out likely again. So it's Angelo Ogbonna and Craig Dawson at centre-half when that was not meant to be the plan. You know, so much has gone wrong for West Ham this season, and 9 defeats to this point is terrible. Really terrible. You know, when games against like Crystal Palace, they should have got a draw. They lost it. They keep finding ways to lose games. I don't think West Ham will go down, but I certainly think it's going to be a very tough season for them. Lower half of the bottom half is where they're going to finish. A lot of eggs in the Conference League basket. I think that's right, but they've got a run here where it's just Premier League up to March, and they've got to pick up 5 or 6 wins. It isn't going to happen here. Don't go anywhere near West Ham at the moment as a gambler. Wait for a couple of victories before you start thinking about betting on West Ham again. They are maybe the worst bet in the league at this moment in time because they keep finding ways to lose. They keep finding ways to cost you money. So go Arsenal win. But I'll tell you what happened last season is the game was 0-0 going into the 85th minute. Eddie Nketiah scored in the last 5. That was the game at the Emirates, I think, last season. That's what I'll be looking for again. 0-0 all the way through. West Ham will go ultra defensive. They'll keep Arsenal out, and Arsenal will score late to win. So that's what I'd be going for here.
All right, 3 more games. Chelsea, Bournemouth is the next one on Tuesday. We left Chelsea really in trouble. 3 consecutive defeats, no victories in the last 5 for Potter's men. Luckily, they are facing Bournemouth, but also we left Bournemouth outside of the relegation spots, Tom.
Yeah, look, I think Chelsea were awful, right? That was a really bad run of form. 2 points in the last 5 games, losing a lot of games, playing poorly. Graham Potter trying a bunch of stuff. He's throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall right now. It looks to me at the moment like he is overwhelmed by the job. It looks to me like the players don't quite know what they've got as a manager. Those are not positive things. But it's worth noting Chelsea still have a fabulously talented squad. It depends on whether some of the senior players are going to be fit. You know, is Kepa fit? Is Chilwell fit? Is Loftus-Cheek fit? Is Fofana fit? Is Reece James fit? We heard Armando Broja is going to be missing for the rest of this season. We heard N'Golo Conte is going to be missing until February, maybe March. So I could not answer a question on Chelsea because I don't know, because the manager doesn't know. I don't know the formation. I don't know the style of play. I do know they have a better squad than Bournemouth, even with all those injuries. For Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill's got the job full time. Bill Foley has bought the club now. That's all been cleared. Michael B. Jordan of Black Panther fame is apparently part of the consortium that bought the club. I think that's quite funny. So it's worth mentioning, but Bournemouth are probably going to go down. Chelsea are going to win this game. I think Bournemouth will try desperately to hold on across this match, but look for Chelsea to win it with goals early doors on the front foot in the first half, at least 2-0 up by half time. Chelsea win both halves. Chelsea win the game.
All right. And also on Tuesday, we have Man United Forest. Man United without Cristiano Ronaldo, being very solid at home this season. And Forest only 1 point away from salvation because they beat Crystal Palace in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing Erik ten Hag's plan come to fruition a bit now. I think he knew Ronaldo had to go. That it's good that story and sideshow is over because Ronaldo is offering nothing apart from negative headlines. And now the manager can build the team that he wants, which is around Anthony. It's around Bruno Fernandes. It's around some of these players that have underwhelmed for 18 months that look better when Ronaldo's not on the field. And I think we'll see more and more from them. And good news for United that Brazil and Portugal got knocked out relatively early because both of those players should have been back for a couple of weeks now. So should be fit and firing and raring to go in this game. Nottingham Forest, I think they're still going to get relegated. They still look like a bit of a mess of a team to me, but they will pick up some very important wins at home, which they have done, and recently did, as you mentioned, against Crystal Palace. But away from home, I don't see them landing much of a punch here. A lot of injuries as well on the current list for Forest. Doubts about Morgan Gibbs-White, about Biancone, Aurier, Colback, Kouyaté is out, Niakate is out, Nico Williams is out. You know, massive squad, still a bit of a monster. And I can only see them going to Man United and losing. I'd say Man U win both halves. At 1.2, it's not really worth your time. Look for Man United to win. I might even look Asian handicap here at -2 for Manchester United. I think they win this quite handsomely, winning both halves.
And a very nice game, the last one, Leeds Man City, because we left Leeds scoring a lot of goals, 4-3 against Spurs, 4-3 against Bournemouth, they beat Liverpool away, and because Man City, they were struggling before the break, perhaps Leeds can surprise Man City, or not?
No, I don't think so. Look, Leeds are going to be fun. These are going to be fun to watch. I still think they're going to be in relegation trouble, but they harnessed something for a couple of weeks there under Jesse Marsh. But they're a team, when you ride on emotion, you get games like the Bournemouth game, you get games like the Liverpool game, but they still have organisational issues. They still have a really poor defence. Ilya Melier, the young goalkeeper, has been nowhere near the quality of last season. And I think there are issues there that Leeds have not sorted. And frankly, they do need to start getting goals from Patrick Bamford, who looks a shadow of his former self. Rodrigo, we know he's done well at points this year, but he's not necessarily a consistent Premier League striker. And some of the young people like Crescencio Somerville, they've looked good, but they're young. And that means you aren't going to get consistency from these players. The senior guys at Leeds need to step up. For Man City, second in the table was smart. The loss against Brentford will have frustrated, but you did get the feeling a lot of the players were thinking about the World Cup. In that particular game, there was a real eye off the ball feel about the game against Brentford. I don't think you're going to get that here. Erling Haaland's done nothing for a month, so I think that's going to be really interesting here. Look for the Haaland hat-trick, as you always should, with Manchester City. Certainly Haaland will score in this game. Here's your Asian handicap. I think City are going to win this comfortably. You could go -2. You could even go -3. I think City are going to score a lot of goals in this game against a very open Leeds. But one thing I do want to go with is the over on goals. Over 2.5, maybe over 3.5 goals in this game. I can see this as 1-3, 1-4, 2-4. Big goals, lots of excitement. Haaland to get at least 2 as well.
All right, City Asian handicap -2, for instance, is 2.4. We also have to see Kevin De Bruyne, whose World Cup was very disappointing, coming back to his club, to Man City. Well, Tom, finally, Premier League is back. I'm looking forward to watching it. And let's finish the video with your favorite bet for this match day.
Yeah, the safe bet for me is Manchester City win, as it is for a lot of weeks, but spice it up and go with over 2.5 goals in the game. That'll get you around 2-1 for a City win, which is pretty decent.
There are certain things that don't change, even in this Christmassy period. And your ACCA, Tom?
3-team ACCA of away wins brings you in at 5-1. Tottenham to win at Brentford. Newcastle to win at Leicester to make it spicy, and throw City in too. You get that for around 5-1 today.
Beautiful. So I hope you are not depressed anymore, because football is back, Premier League is back. We have so many games on the 26th on Boxing Day to enjoy. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget, press the like, subscribe, and Tom, see you during Christmas. This Premier League is not stopping now. Bye-bye.